Our guests tonight are the three of the four Democratic candidates for District 3 of the Public Service Commission race. The format here is I'm going to give them 20 minutes to talk, and they're going to do an introduction, their background, and why they're running. So in order, we'll do Robert Jones, Daniel Blackman, Peter Hubbard, who is online. Keisha Shawn Waits could not make it tonight. There are several candidate events going on tonight, this week, up until the June 17th election, so she had a scheduled conflict. Okay, so Robert, if you want to come up.
So I think I have 20 minutes, with apologies to Mr. Blackburn, who heard this same story less than 24 hours ago. I'm going to introduce myself with an event that happened just a week ago when I was in the grocery store. And wherever I'm out and about, it's campaign time. So if it looks like you're tolerant enough, I'll come up to you and say, do you know what the Public Service Commission does? And this gentleman turned to me and said, why do you ask? And I said, well, they set the prices and profits of Georgia Power. You've had 6 price increases. I'm actually running for the Public Service Commission. And he goes, okay. What are you running on? I said, well, you know, quite frankly, the way the rules are written for regulation, it benefits the utility. It disadvantages the public. And so the way these rules have been designed, the way they're being implemented, the corporation is always going to come out ahead of those who are paying. He goes, well, give me an example. He's getting pretty direct here now. And so I talked to him about Vogtle and how Vogtle was financed using our money for construction, while at the same time, Georgia Power was paying their shareholders 6% dividend yields, okay? The treasury rates were 4%. You were better off getting dividend yields from Georgia Power and Southern Company because they're using your money finance-free to go ahead and build a nuclear power plant. He goes, well, I happen to be a shareholder and I like that. And I said, you probably should like that, because I went down to the commission in 2022 and said, if you set these profit returns where they are, I'm not a shareholder today, but I probably should be. And they went ahead and set them from 12 to 14%. I said, so you've done really well, congratulations. But I said, you mind telling me, what do you do? Turns out he's a business leader at Oglethorpe Energy. At which point I'm like, oh, well, you should have said that up front. And so we had a very good exchange. I said, you know, because of Oglethorpe, actually, they helped Georgia Power ratepayers quite a bit, because Oglethorpe basically was going to walk away from the deal. And so Georgia Power came forward and gave Oglethorpe $348 million because Oglethorpe was going to say, we're not going to take any more. So Georgia Power has also been paying, or customers have been paying for the facility, and we gave $348 to Oglethorpe. So we go our separate ways. I'm going to say 3 things upon leaving. He goes, first of all, Robert, I'm not going to vote for you. Okay, because you're bad for shareholders, and I like my stock. Okay. Second, he turns to me and goes, we know who you are. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's just you and I. Who's the we here? I wasn't quite ready for that. And then he says, you know your stuff. So my introduction is, I know my stuff, okay, when it comes to regulation. And I say that because when you look at my career, I spent the first 3 years of my career working for the California Public Utilities Commission. I was regulating the energy company. I was regulating the telecommunications company. I was deregulating telecommunications so we can enjoy things like wireless and internet and technology that we're struggling with even today. So I don't like monopolies, okay? I then left there and worked for a utility company for 20 years. Had a great experience, okay? I left there and then went to Microsoft. And I was at Microsoft for 8 years, went around the world helping customers move applications into the data center. So I look at the commission today and the way it's operating, and it's vastly underperforming what it should be. First of all, the monopoly influence and how it has basically now compromised the commission to where now it's serving the utility interest rather than us, compelled me to jump into this race. I wanted to get into this race last year. I had my papers ready. They were all notarized. I was going to go to the Capitol, only to find out the week before, the Secretary of State had canceled the election with no notification. So I've been preparing for this for a couple of years right now. I'm a first-time candidate, okay? So I'm figuring out how I go here. So the issues of data centers, the issues of the environment, the issue of how the commission's operating, that's what's compelling me to get into this race. So I want to spend the rest of the time hearing your questions, hear your concerns, have you evaluate me as you make your decision, and please go vote, okay? This is probably going to be a low turnout, so I tell people your vote is the equivalent of 10 other people who aren't voting. So make sure you make an informed decision, but let's have at it. What's on your mind?
Everybody has a question. Speak to the mic.
Yes, sir.
I'll throw an easy one.
Easy one.
Yeah, so for all of us who haven't been following the court challenges around the Public Service Commission, what is the state of that? Like, is it settled and that's why these elections are happening? Is there still ongoing litigation around how these elections are handled? What is the case of this? What is the future for PSC elections?
Yeah, so the elections he's referring to started in 2020. It's started really in 2021. And just to give you the context on that is the case was because we have to qualify in a district. Okay, so this is the District 3 race, so you must live in either Fulton, DeKalb, or Clayton County. But everybody in the state gets to vote on the representative from that. And so therefore, the preferred representative from those districts have never been able to make it onto the commission, i.e. we would most likely have a Democrat sitting on the commission if they had district-wide elections. But on a statewide basis, it continues to be basically partisan, all-Republican groupthink. This was a voting rights challenge. The voting rights challenge was it's discriminatory to the population that was in that district. The district court agreed with it. The appellate court overturned it. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court kicked it back to the state. They canceled the elections. It got reheard by the appellate court, went back up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to hear it. By that time, elections had been canceled a second time. Since then, the state legislature came along last year with HB 1312, which was supposed to be a bill that was going to basically build EV charging stations out across the state. It was making its way through the legislature, and suddenly at the last minute, they changed it. They threw it away and said, we're actually going to hold public service elections in 2025. In the process of doing that, they took the sitting commissioners and extended their terms. So now you have commissioners who are sitting beyond their constitutional terms, which led to another court case. However, that has not interfered with this election right now. So there's still litigation going on there. Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Having lived through the Whoops public power supply system.
Ann?
Yes. Having lived through the Whoops crisis in my day, I'm curious as to what you would tell people the likely impact of the state's newfound love of data centers is going to be on power and water ratepayers in the state.
So everybody's seeing data centers or seeing going in. Here's how I'd like you to think about how I'm thinking about it, okay? Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook, they build their own data centers. Okay, they're going to find their property, they're going to build it, they're going to run their operations out of that. A lot of the other data centers you're seeing in the news are developers, and that they're doing what I call the field of dreams. If they build it, they will come. So they're betting on the future of AI from that standpoint. Then we get into, all right, so what is it about AI, and why is it going to drive so much energy there? Two sides on that. One is these data centers, if they are basically being used for cryptocurrency mining, that I don't think it's really worth what we're going to incur in terms of the cost and the benefits, both environmentally, in terms of energy, in terms of construction. But in fact, if that's the direction they want to make that bet, you can make that bet, but we have to make sure that it doesn't fall back on you. Unlike Vogel, you don't become the financial backstop for these ventures on that side. Then there is, all right, all this data center work that's going on. There's cryptocurrency, no fan of that. If you look at AI right now, AI it's a generator of a lot of misinformation. My wife just came back last night. She's in the legal profession. She came back from a conference in Chicago. It was all AI. She goes, I'm sick of AI, sick of AI. She said, it's never going to be as bad as it is right now. It's only getting better, okay? And so I look at the things that AI is doing, and it's got the real potential to do some amazing medical cures based on the computing power that's there. So from that standpoint, I want to see it go forward. Having been in Microsoft, the whole ChatGPT, I really regretted them going commercial as early as they did. I'd seen the development over the last 8 years. It's too soon to be in the marketplace. It's out there, you can't put it back in the bottle, but right now there's no rules, there's no regulation around AI right now. It's in the wild, wild west. But if you go out there, and I have a concern about your future, okay? Because if you're out on AI, if you've got a student who's doing graphic design, have them shift their majors very quickly, okay? If they're starting as a freshman in graphic design, by the time they graduate, it's gonna be pretty hard for them to find a job there. And so we need to be looking at what are the social impacts of this technology. Last thing I'll say on AI and these data centers are not being built just for Georgia, okay? These data centers are coming to Georgia because we've incentivized them, but they're going to be serving customers in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida, all right? The data centers in Virginia, they have one customer. That's the federal government, okay? So we're going to be incurring some costs in terms of environment that we aren't necessarily the beneficiaries of. All of that needs to be factored into what the commission's doing. And they're not doing it, okay? They're still reactionary. I say the commission is a reaction function. Georgia Power stimulates it, they react. Georgia Power stimulates it, they react. They need to be forward-thinking in terms of what do we want Georgia's energy environment to look like 5 years from now, and put that plan out there for us all to see and comment on and design it collectively versus just reacting. Okay.
So one that was sent in. So the current all-Republican Public Service Commission has raised rates numerous times in recent years. So if Democrats can get control of the commission, can rates actually be turned down, or are we talking about mitigating the expected increases?
The way the rules are written right now, it favors the utility, okay? And so why I'm running is to do this uphill climb, because the rules that are in place are 30 years old and they're outdated, and we're still using them that it benefits the utility. If the utility comes with a case and says, I want to raise the rates, and we have 5 Democrats sitting there, and we say no, we deny it, because the commission is a quasi-judicial body, it then gets appealed to the courts. And if you're going to basically say no to their request, you better have a very strong legal foundation to withstand from a court challenge piece of it there. Yes?
There's a question online.
There's a question online?
Yes, Jean DeFord.
Jean?
Can you explain to people who get their power from
Hey,
EMCs?
thank you.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, I'm from Morgan County, and we have all kinds of EMCs plus Georgia Power providing service. And so far, most of the talk, almost all the talk has been about PSC and Georgia Power.
Yeah.
Can you explain why voters should be motivated to come out and vote and get their power from EMCs?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the argument, why do we have a statewide election, okay, when Georgia Power is mostly concentrated in District 3 and District 2, where they are there, which is another part of the argument. However, if you look at a lot of the electric generating facilities, they are jointly owned by Oglethorpe and jointly owned by Georgia Power. And so Oglethorpe is the wholesaler that distributes out to the EMCs. The commission, in terms of their oversight of the EMCs, really just looks at the financial structure of them to make sure that they're operating financially well, you're not going to go bankrupt, you're secure on that piece of it. The rate difference is between an EMC customer and a Georgia Power customer. I did the math last night. It's 14%. Because EMCs are co-ops, nonprofits. You're a Georgia Power customer, what's the 14% difference? That's the rate of return that's built in that the commission allocated there. And so, from a commission standpoint, we all 4 of us Democrats in this election want district-specific elections, okay? We love you, but you're outside of District 3. Please vote for me, okay? But right now, it is what it is, okay? All right? Yes,
so Georgia is not a model state for use of renewable energy sources. So how do we ramp that up? You know, better use of, solar power, for example.
Did I tell you I don't like monopolies? Okay, because I work for monopolies. Monopolies are interested in protecting the monopoly. Okay? So if we incentivize all of you putting solar panels on your house with battery and then give you the opportunity to sell your excess energy back to Georgia Power, okay, which is the whole industry is dead set against right now, suddenly now we're in the renewable energy business and you become your own little mini electric generator, okay? And there's some groundswell going in some other states where some Republican-led states are now saying, you know what? This community solar, this net metering, this chargeback system, that compared to we want to do more gas-fired, environmentally damaged coal generation, no. Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience here?
Thanks. I had a bit of a follow-up from Harold's question. To what extent does the commission actually control decisions towards sustainable power? Are you in a position to move in that direction?
So this is back to my point about the commission as a reactionary function, okay? And so I often wonder, I mean, if Georgia Power or somebody else didn't bring a case before the commission, what would they do with their time? Would they create essentially an energy plan for the state of Georgia, independent of what Georgia Power is doing? And the commission is supposed to be the experts in energy. If you live in a town or a city, I've done work on a local planning commission, okay? They build out a 3-year plan of a development, okay? And says, all right, we want to put a park there, stores there, this type of house, we want this type of roadway. The community comes in, they look at it, the developers look at it, they go through iterations and it's locked off, and now you got a plan. You won't find the Georgia Energy Plan at the commission. You won't find the Georgia Any Plan on the website at all. And here we are, a state of 10 million people, and right now, Georgia Power, they're $17 billion, okay? They want to essentially do $35 billion of investment over the next 5 years, okay, to basically go serve data centers. And I've got to make sure that not a penny of that falls on you, okay? Because all of that demand is not to serve residential customers.
But it's not, excuse me, but it's not just about money. It's about the future.
Yes.
So it's, I'm not as interested in saving 10 cents on my bill as I am in seeing solar power on everybody's roof.
Yes. Completely. Completely. I mean, my platform is, I want Georgia to be the nation's leader in rooftop solar energy for nation's meter.
I have a little son to be able to support it.
I moved here 9 years ago from Seattle, okay? I love it here, okay? We saw sun 3 months out of the year, all right? They've got,
Failure, why don't we have more solar?
and they got a lot of solar in Washington State, okay? They do.
Anyone else?
What sort
Hold on, Robin, hold on.
Sort of, I'm sorry. Thank you. What sort of battery backup would you suggest for someone who already has solar?
Tesla batteries.
Because Georgia Power, for our business, Georgia Power does the net metering, right? But for residential, it's Walton EMC, so there is no net metering.
I've looked at the Tesla system. I'm kind of down on Tesla right now for other reasons, and so, my wife owns a Tesla, and I'm kind of like, all right, I'm putting you on the clock, okay? So we got to figure something out here very quickly. But yes, please go do your research and get a battery system in there, and then we should be able to do net metering and sell that excess back. The other piece is these data centers, they're building many electric generation stations as backup there. And I'm watching to see if they enter into agreements where they're selling their electricity back to Georgia Power. And if they're going to do it for those data centers, I have to watch my language. We're going to do it for the residential customers as well to make sure they have that same deal going on.
But they do it for the businesses, they don't do it for residential. That's why I'm asking. What do you recommend for residential?
Oh, I recommend solar. I recommend a battery backup. I don't recommend a particular manufacturer of those right now. That would sound like a public endorsement. I'm trying to run for office here, okay? I need to make everybody happy. Okay.
Last question. In order of priority, what are the top 3 issues that you want to tackle if you get to be elected?
Only 3. One is, first and foremost, regulatory reform. this whole process of having you pay for things before they're built has got to go. The second is rooftop solar energy. The third I haven't talked about, but within the whole calculation of setting rates, it's to internalize the social costs of environmental harm in the process. And so I look at Tesla, because if you look at Tesla's last quarter earnings, their profit came from selling carbon offsets to other companies. So we can quantify now the cost of pollution financially, and we should be moving that into an explicit calculation in setting rates and in cost, okay? The federal government wants to yank that out. The federal government wants us to go full bore on coal, okay? So part of it is going to be resisting the intrusion of the federal government on Georgia State.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's it? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Daniel Blackman, everyone.
How's everybody doing? This is a little different format because usually we get to sit on stage together and kind of do this together, but I want to just thank Robert. I want to thank Peter. First of all, give a round of applause that we have a contested primary for the Public Service Commission, because that's just something you don't see. And, I'm no stranger to this part of the state. Previously, I was appointed by President Biden after losing the last Public Service Commission election. And I'm very proud to have been the Democratic nominee for the Public Service Commission. We came extraordinarily close to winning the first statewide election that a Democrat has run since. Some of y'all remember the names like Roy Barnes and Mark Taylor and all those, and people like Michael Thurman, who's from this part of the state. So I want to just say thank you. And the most important thing that I'll say before we have this conversation is it is very refreshing to see folks from behind social media in these rooms, in these types of environments where we can actually talk about these races, but do something about it on June 17th and ultimately on November 4th. The first thing that I want you guys to know is that I absolutely believe Jon Ossoff is critical to the U.S. Senate. John's pathway to victory is through us winning this year in 2025 to give John the ample support he needs, and every other Democrat that needs to win from governor all the way down to dog catcher. We cannot forget about local elections because county commissioners, school board members, and all these individuals are critical. So why am I here? Similar to what was mentioned earlier, I think it's important for us to all understand that the Public Service Commission is one of those positions that has historically just not been as attractive, right? And I think that what's important about what you guys are going to hear today, and then going beyond the primary into the general, is how critical it is to individuals like senior citizens on a fixed income. When you ask the question about EMCs and you have these concerns about how the Public Service Commission's decisions impact these communities, it impacts individuals on fixed incomes around the state that also share in the cost of some of the infrastructure or the lack thereof in the state of Georgia. And I think what's most critical about you all understanding that is the Public Service Commission isn't just about setting utility rates, right? How many people know Georgia is amongst the highest energy burden in the United States? I mean, I'm kind of giving you the answer, but we are, right? And when you look at West Virginia, for example, just to put this in comparison, West Virginia has the largest energy impact on utilities in the country. On average, their citizens pay about $690 per month. In the state of Georgia, we're not that far behind. We pay around $570 per month on our utilities. And that is a tremendously high number. So when you think of how this impacts us overall and what goes into this, my background is very much in alignment with what is critical about this role, what's important about this role, and why we need to have not just one commissioner. We have a second race with Alicia Johnson in District 2. And if we get 2 Democrats on the Public Service Commission, we have to run again next year, but we potentially get 3. And while we can't reverse rates, we can balance, we can impact by having, I believe, town hall meetings and conversations outside of the city of Atlanta. Because the challenge that we have right now is that, especially with Democrats, we have seen these races statewide and the legislative process as being governed solely from Atlanta, not in Oconee, not in Forsyth, not in Hall, not in Raven. These are areas that are absolutely important to us being able to move forward. So why am I here? When I ran for the Public Service Commission, it wasn't something that I decided to do on a whim or just figured, hey, this is a good position to run for. 2005, Hurricane Katrina happened. And when Hurricane Katrina hit, it was the first time myself at 25 years old had learned about climate change and global warming. So I began to work. I actually worked during that time to get accredited in national emergency response. Obama got elected 2 or 3 years later. The Clean Power Plan began to rise that helped to impact the reduction of emissions across the country, especially by fossil fuel industries. And it hit me here because I grew up with asthma. And I understand that the regulatory process is not just about lower utility bills. It's about kids that wake up every day in North Georgia and rural Georgia and struggle from respiratory illness. It's about communities that are overwhelmingly impacted, especially seniors who are amongst the highest respiratory impacted individuals in the country. And a lot of what you're going to hear from the Public Service Commission candidates is absolutely correct. There's no transparency. Our rates are too high, and we're doing too much to avoid the most serious question, and that is a cost burden that is coming not only on our generation, but on Caleb's generation. That's Caleb, right? So Caleb, knowing this, we have to understand that Plant Vogtle is something that we in Georgia will be paying for over the next 50 years. And I want you all to understand when these types of decisions are made, it impacts us. It's not just a decision that happens today. When I worked for the president, I was appointed to run the Environmental Protection Agency in 8 states. 6 of the 8 states that I ran were all led by conservatives. As a matter of fact, I had Ron DeSantis in my region, which you can imagine is a whole nother conversation. But when you're working with individuals that are across the country, that are dealing with this type of a lack of investment. Here's why this matters in this particular year with this particular administration out of Washington. Number one, low-income heat and energy assistance. How many of you all know about the LIHEAP? Most hands didn't go up. Well, in February of this year, President Trump froze low-income heat and energy assistance, which means for seniors, from low-income people that are in rural communities, for marginalized communities that are depending on them being able to receive energy assistance when they can't afford their bill. If you're a senior on a fixed income and your bill goes up, your income doesn't go up. So we have to understand that when programs like this are cut, it has a direct impact on all of us that are in this room. When programs are cut around the state, especially when you look at the work that we were able to do during the Biden-Harris administration, we had the largest federal investment in the history of this country. So you want to talk about battery storage and energy investment. These are things that through the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, we were able to do for the state of Georgia. And I want to give you a couple of things that we were able to impact. They're not necessarily connected with the Public Service Commission, but I want to make a correlation. Number one, on infrastructure, we had a question about battery storage. These are areas that federal subsidies were set aside for to increase the capacity of states, regions, counties, and local communities to be able to expand rooftop solar, to look and research on right-of-way solar. It was just, I heard somebody say, even Mr. Jones mention about the amount of sun Georgia gets, but we're not utilizing it. When you look at data centers are not the enemy. Data centers are here to stay. But when data centers extract water and impact environments, and when side deals are made with commissions before coming before the public, that's where we draw the line. And that's why while I was serving as the regional administrator, I was at the University of Georgia because they have one of the first in the country schools of artificial intelligence and agriculture, because we have to understand the impact on data centers, the impact on infrastructure, the impact on all of these areas that are going to lead to the future. And I think you're absolutely right about graphic design. When you look at what our kids are going to school for, there was a time where if you graduated from the University of Georgia or you graduated from Georgia Tech or Spelman College, you went to Silicon Valley for a job. What data centers will do will heighten and increase the workforce of the state of Georgia. So that's why I believe that any person that gets behind the primary, which I hope, and I'm asking for your vote, will have to focus on how we build the future of the state of Georgia. We can't just have somebody because they're a Democrat that holds a seat and votes no. What we have to have is someone with ingenuity, someone with vision, someone that has a background and a history of working with states and with communities. When you look at Dalton, Georgia, and what they were able to do with Q-cells, when you look at battery storage in South Georgia, I grew up in Columbus, Georgia. When you look at Fort Benning, my father was a United States Army Ranger. I understand that if the United States military can get federal investments and subsidies to put solar in those communities, why can't we do it in Athens? Why can't we do it in Oconee? Why can't we do it across our state? So we have to pull the layers back and build transparency. And that's why I'm here today, Because if we don't understand the moment that we are in and a 5-member commission, 3 of the 5 members who have been appointed by the governor, 3 of the 5 members, matter of fact, let me not even say 3 of the 5, all of them openly take money from the utility companies in which they regulate. And I'm here to tell you that with my former position, I was under the Hatch Act, I was under the Biden Ethics Pledge, and I couldn't receive gifts from anyone I regulated. I will not take a dime from a utility company, from a utility executive, or from their wife that we may have never heard about. Because how about what? Boeing? Oh, yeah. I want to stay away from it all. But what I will tell you and why being here is so important, right? And this is nothing against my colleagues, but I've already received the endorsement from the Sierra Club. I've received the endorsement from the Working Family Parties, from Georgia Conservation Voters. These are organizations around the state of Georgia that have held these individuals accountable. And I want you all to understand that it's nothing against the other candidates in this race. I believe any of us can do a better job, but doing the job from a campaigning standpoint and a governance standpoint are 2 totally different things. It was mentioned about EMCs. When I lived in Forsyth County, Georgia, we had an EMC. We were vested in it. We were a part of a membership. And the 14% that was mentioned, you're absolutely right. We are dealing with companies and organizations that no matter how far behind schedule or over budget they are, their shareholders are making a profit and they're never on the hook for what happens to those of us in this room, to working families. I worked with labor from Savannah all the way to Blue Ridge for the last 10 years to make sure that we protected the interests of our line workers and those individuals that are around the state and around the country, quite frankly, that are exposed to over access amounts of heat. And those individuals are putting their lives on the line every day. So what can we do with the Public Service Commission, especially in being in that position? I'll say these things in the next 3 or 4 minutes. And I know there were questions already asked. If you want to wait to the end, I'm happy to do that, or I can take them. But what I think you all should know about me is, number one, Georgia Power and not even Georgia Power, the Public Service Commission is responsible for making a safe and reliable grid, or at least overseeing that process. I do not want to see in Georgia what happened in Texas in 2021 when an ice storm completely destroyed their grid and it cost people their lives, their time, and their structure. I'm not against Georgia Power. I'm against Georgia Power passing rates and doing things that are manipulative of the Public Service Commission that are not in the best interest of our state and of our people. When the lights go off after a storm, I want our lights to come back on. But we need to make sure the executives and the attorneys at Georgia Power understand that we're watching and that they will not get a blank check on anything they do. So I want a strong grid. I want a reliable grid. Most people don't know that one of the only no-fly zones in the United States is right here in Georgia at Kings Bay. And when I was briefed in my former role, we understood the security risk of having nuclear plants in all of these areas. And there is no contingency right now if you live in Burke County, Georgia, or around the proximity of Plant Vogtle for an evacuation. These are things that we're not thinking about from a security standpoint. So here's what I would like to do. Number one, we've got to work with the legislative body. Even though we are not legislators, we are regulators. We have to work with them to ensure that policies are in place that can be more of an overseer. We're not watchdogs as public service commissioners, but we can advocate for and lobby legislators on how they want to restore the Consumer Utility Council. This was established under Governor Sonny Perdue. It was a Republican, but then it was before Perdue. It was $480,000 a year, and it was in place for a consumer group to oversee what the Public Service Commission did and make recommendation for ratepayers. The Public Service Commission has been bought and sold. Let me just put it out there. The gentleman that was on last night, he even said that he has no problem taking resources, money, and finances from Georgia Power. The gentleman that we're running against, the incumbent, had the audacity not even to show up, but has taken over 60% of his contributions have come from utility companies. So we want to make sure there's a strong grid. We want to make sure that not only when I get elected, we want to work with other commissioners and encourage a bench to be built so that Caleb's generation can look at the Public Service Commission as a position that they want to pursue in the future. We can no longer focus just on the governor and lieutenant governor and attorney general. The Public Service Commission can, number three, push and support for clean energy investment. I want to see a state that leverages the resources we have by bringing together the public and private sector around the data centers to ensure that we can increase our capacity, strengthen our grid, but also look to the future as it relates to renewable energy. Last thing that I'll say is that I really, really, really appreciate each and every one of you that are here. It's very hard to campaign around the state. It's very hard when you have a group of candidates that all want to win a very competitive race. It's a challenge. But one thing that I know is when I look around this room There are three things we have to look for from Democrats that run for these positions. Number one, we can't just show up when we're on the ballot. We have to be here throughout the process and ensure that when we make a commitment, because this is a 6-year term, the person you elect, if we get past November, this is a 6-year term after we run again, but it's ultimately a term that we don't have to show back up for. So here's what I want to do. We need to have town halls and meetings outside the Public Service Commission and take the show on the road, regardless of if you're in our district or not. We need to be in this part of the state so you all know each and every decision on energy, the regulatory process, and investment in this state so that you can be a more educated and informed voter. But we also need to make sure that in this process, we work to get 3 commissioners that are from the Democratic Party to establish that, because since 1992, here's one of the most important things I can tell you. Bobby Baker was the first Republican to be elected in the state of Georgia since Reconstruction, and he won the Public Service Commission seat. The Public Service Commission is the first seat Republicans won before they took the governor's seat, and they've not looked back in over 23 years. And we can change that with this election by electing 2 Democrats to the Public Service Commission. My name is Daniel Blackman. I am working extraordinarily hard to work with the other candidates in a sense of we want to be competitive, but we all want to win. And I ask that you will go check our credentials, look at our websites, look at what we have to offer, listen to our answers, but more than anything else, make an informed decision and get your friends, your families, and your neighbors to get to the poll and vote. Thank you all so much for your time.
Sure. So my question is, what's the difference? How do you go from falling short on the same ballot, Ossoff Warnock, or saving the Senate, to winning a little-known, going to be a very low turnout election this time around?
How do we say the last part? How do we
go around to winning this election?
How do we win this election? Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's a very easy answer. I think we're more motivated around what we are seeing coming out of D.C. and coming out from around the country, especially with all the rollbacks, that our base, look, our win number right now is right around 568,000. We know it's going to be a low turnout, but we know where to get those votes from. And the way we do it is by not focusing and centralizing all of our efforts in Metro Atlanta. That's why I've been to 16 cities in the last 3 weeks around Georgia, including Macon, Savannah, Augusta, Houston County. I've been to, I don't want to go through the whole list, but I've been to a lot of places and I've been motivating and inspiring and encouraging people to go, but I've been listening. I think the things that we need to do this year is build this capacity around a pocketbook issue. Where Republicans have beaten Democrats for so long is by fear-mongering and trying to put things in front of us that distract us. Just like when they said about trans kids in sports. Regardless of how you feel about that, there are only 5 or 10 in the entire NCAA's 536,000 athletes that are there, but that one issue apparently cost us a presidential election. We've got to stop being distracted. We have to work on this issue. And the Public Service Commission is the one race where you can't argue the 5 Republicans that have supported and voted 6 rate increases in 7 years, that have given a blank check to the utility companies and that have done time after time. They've shown you who they are. I believe that there are enough folks that are frustrated. And in my last election, if you check the data, we outperformed Ossoff and Warnock in Republican strongholds that were in fossil fuel radius type areas. We overperformed in those areas with our numbers because not just Democrats, but Republicans' utility bills are too high as well.
Okay, question. Top 3 priorities.
Top 3 priorities. Number 1 would be to educate. I know it sounds cheesy and corny, but when I become a public service commissioner, my first priority is to get out of that office and to make sure that we don't just do this as a debate or a forum. We show up. We have to be here, and this has to be consistent so that we understand the importance of this race. Number 2, affordability. How do we get there? I already have access to not only the legislative body, but also from the last 3 or 4 years, I've worked as advising on a federal level, how we get federal resources and how we bring in the private sector into states like Georgia so that as data centers grow and come, we can leverage that and make sure that we know up front from our county commissioners. I want to work with those individuals to let them know what to look for because the data centers are important and needed, but they are going to have an overwhelmingly high impact on our utility bills and on our water. We need to put regulations in place. And then lastly, I think what's probably going to separate me a little bit in this conversation is we need to make sure that we understand how the Public Service Commission can be used over the next decade, not just tomorrow, not just for the next election, how the Public Service Commission can be used to evolve and grow into a regulatory body that promotes clean energy and that actually can work on the transitional portion to explore those types of investment in coastal Georgia, rural Georgia, and North Georgia. So I want to be respectful of Mr. Hubbard. I'll be around for more questions, especially at the end, but I want to thank all you and I want to thank Mr. Jones.
Next candidate is Peter Hubbard.
Good. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. So my name is Peter Hubbard, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I'd like to talk for about 6 or 7 minutes about, why I'm in this race, what I'm all about, what I bring to the table. But I think I want to start just with, echo my two colleagues, Robert Jones and Daniel Blackman, and then also Dr. Johnson, who will follow. I think we are enriched by the fact that there is this robust competition and this debate and this ability to bring, so many people with, I think, both experience and passion, as you saw, both from the last two colleagues and then me as well. And so that's good. It's also sort of a sign, though, of the systemic sort of challenge here, right? As was mentioned, we all have to live in a certain district, but this is anyone in the state can vote on us. And as a result, not only has there been a majority, not just a majority of Republicans on the Public Service Commission, but unanimous control. And so you don't even have that one voice who can speak up for residential ratepayers, all of you, the customers of Georgia Power Company. So what I want to talk to you about is a little bit of my background here. So, for the last 15 years, I have been in the energy industry. Before that, I guess I started at the University of Memphis. I got a degree in physics and mathematics, actually astrophysics. And then I went to Johns Hopkins, studied international relations and economics, and then I went into the energy industry. And really over the last 15 years, I've been cutting my teeth on different market models and understanding really every aspect. As someone who just sort of likes to take things apart to understand how they work, like a physics person. I really wanted to understand what underlies our economy, and energy is incredibly fundamental to that. So what that naturally led me to, in addition to all the energy work that I've done at, doing a lot of market consulting for utilities, in fact, preparing integrated resource plans for utilities and understanding what levers they can pull to get the results they'd like. That's the kind of work that I've actually done. I understand this sort of stuff. Currently right now, I'm also a solar and storage developer, and I do a lot of that outside of the state of Georgia, but I also focus on what I think is an underlooked and underrepresented market. We've got a lot of utility scale solar in the South. We need more rooftop solar, absolutely, but there's this middle ground community solar that can fit in spaces that are 5, 10, 20 acres that can do a lot of good, and it's actually quite a bit cheaper than putting on your rooftop. There's good and bad to all of these. I do some of that development, but I also founded a nonprofit agency, a nonprofit organization called the Georgia Center for Energy Solutions. I put it there, the link in the chat, so I would encourage you to check it out, because what that is for the last 6 years, basically in the entire term of a public service commissioner, without being paid a dime, just because I'm passionate about this, I've been going down in front of the Public Service Commission and arguing for more clean power and less fossil gas and coal and other things like that in each one of the integrated resource plans that Georgia Power Company puts forward. Those plans that they put forward, and then the Public Service Commission evaluates and says, yay or nay, or change this. And the reason why I got involved because I saw way back in 2019, 6 years ago, and doing that integrated resource plan, that there were a lot of sort of clever things that the power company was doing to steer the results in the direction they wanted. I intervened again in the 2022 integrated resource plan, last year in the 23 integrated resource plan. I know it took place in 24, but it's called the 23 IRP update. And I'm involved in this power plan right now. In fact, on May, right after Memorial Day, I will be down in front of the Public Service Commission May 27th and May 28th, maybe May 29th, arguing as a formal intervener against this current 2025 integrated resource plan. In fact, if you go to my website, again, it's www.georgia-ces.org. That's where I've presented the independent analysis that I've done, and there's a couple of other interveners that have done some really good analysis that has found similar results. But when you actually factor in the true costs of natural gas, what they are today, the model doesn't select for. We don't see the natural gas that the power company is trying to put forward sneakily in this integrated resource plan. I'm pushing back against that. I'm fighting that fight right now, and so what I hope that you can sort of recognize is that there's a bigger picture here. What I'm trying to do is sort of channel my passion and focus and expertise and experience before the Public Service Commission, arguing for these clean power plans and a just and equitable transition towards clean energy without sacrificing reliability while keeping the lid on power prices. And what I want to do is just, with that, I want to just answer a couple of quick questions that I heard and then open it up to you all so that you can kind of grill me and see, what you think, because there were a lot of good questions. First question, the data center energy and water impact. Here's the deal. Right now, on my website, you'll see I've done a calculator. Georgia Power customers pay 21 cents a kilowatt hour for their energy in the summertime. It's a little bit less in the wintertime. Data centers are getting a sweetheart deal. They pay 5 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the difference, 5 cents versus 21 cents. Now, there is a reason for it not to be the same, but not that dramatically different. So what I can do as a commissioner with the actual authority of a statewide officer, hold both the power company and my colleagues on the commission to account for that discrepancy. And actually, solar isn't just good for generating electricity, it's also good as a disinfectant. So shining light on this sort of secretive process and how decisions are made at the Public Service Commission around the integrated resource plan and then what follows that rate case. And I plan to be active in that as well, again, without being paid, just because I'm passionate about this. I heard the question about, how can we actually reverse the rates, or can we put a stop to it? Some of this is baked into the cake. That Vogel plant, we paid for about 15 years of construction work in progress, and then it's amortized over 6 years. It's a 75-year payback. So our children's children will be paying for it. That's some of that's baked into the cake, and we can't unbuild it. But what I can say is that with my analysis, I see the fat. I see what we can trim. I know how bloated the system is and how we can squeeze a lot more juice, if you will, out of it. And so what I can say with certainty is that I can hold the line on residential rate increases. I can say, to the extent that I'm just one commissioner, we hope to have 2 and then 3, but I can shine the light and say there is no reason for this rate increase. I can say that through 2030. We've already increased residential rates and power bills by $60 over these 6 increases. It's a 37% increase. The average customer bill is up $60 a month as a result. So I can hold the line on that, and I will exercise that authority. As a commissioner, you have discovery rights. You can actually ask questions of the power company, and they're compelled to respond. So I'll use that authority. Why should folks that have get their power from EMCs come out? Well, Georgia Power sort of is the 900-pound gorilla. They dictate the terms through this integrated resource plan. What they decide to build, that's what Oglethorpe Power and MEAG and the others join up on, like Vogel, and then everyone ends up having to pay for those extra costs. So Georgia Power wholesales power to the EMCs. Oglethorpe does as well. And when we build expensive infrastructure, everybody pays for it. So it's more indirect, but everyone feels that impact. And how do we ramp up solar? I mentioned that community solar and those sort of the middle ground. I also just know if you look at our neighbors, North Carolina, Florida, they have close to 100,000 rooftops with solar on it. It's not the perfect solution, but we're well underinvested in solar and rooftop solar, and there's a benefit because usually it's richer folks that end up doing it, and they sort of self-subsidize some of that. There should be compensation for it. We should get paid for what we sell back into it. It's a complicated process, but we're not getting that fair remuneration, right? You're only getting paid about 8 or 9 cents a kilowatt hour for what you put back onto the grid versus the 21 cents you pay for it. So it's not really equal. And, you know, I think there's a lot more that I can say, but what I just want to say is, you know, it was said that we need someone who's proactive. So I'll stop the rate increases with my authority. I will, you know, put forward, I have put forward a proactive plan. It's on my website already. What I'll do is keep refining and improving it, and really dial it in. You know, I already think that it's comparable to what Georgia Power Company is producing with a much bigger budget than I have. And the third thing I'll do is just, you know, hold the power company, the monopoly power company, and my colleagues on the commission accountable. So, you know, I want to conclude there and just hope you recognize that I've been doing the work. I'm passionate about this. I want to bring this energy and this commitment to making Georgia a better place for my got a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old. And probably hasn't walked in the door behind me because I'm on dad duty at the same time. But you know, I want to bring this energy to this race. And so let me pause there and just encourage you to come out June 17th. I hope you vote for me, Peter Hubbard. I'm open to any questions and look forward to them. Thank you.
Peter, you're involved in the integrated resource plan. You've intervened. You're also a candidate to be on this commission. So what kind of reaction are you getting when you're in this process from the commission itself?
Well, this is my 4th rodeo in front of the commission, and they don't like my position because, you know, they are not sworn to tell the truth like an intervener like I am. I under penalty of perjury, I swear to tell the truth. So you'll hear things like green energy scam and other things like that. They're not terribly receptive to who butters their biscuit, and that's you know, we heard that they take money from Georgia Power Company and their affiliates. So, you know, they don't want to kill the golden goose there. And I'm a thorn in their side. I'm speaking truth to power. So they're not terribly receptive to me. I would have run earlier could I have, but what I wanted to do is put on record what these power plants that they've been rubber stamping, you know, are not good for Georgia Power Company. Now we're seeing it again, $60 more per month over these 6 rate increases in just 3 years. So not a great reception, but I don't care. I am going to continue to put forward the evidence and publish my work so that, you know, it's irrefutable basically, and they don't care for that.
Okay. Just a question of clarification. Are they getting, the commissioners today, are they getting contributions from the company or from the company's employees?
It's former employees. It is the lawyers that will be representing them before the 2025 Integrated Resource Plan. It's other executives. It's not necessarily Georgia Power Company directly themselves, but it's very easy to see if you pull their list of owners that they file. A lot of fossil fuel companies and affiliates and others that are associated with Georgia Power Company. It's not hard to find.
Okay, you tore through all the questions I have in my hand right now. How about anyone in the audience here? Any questions for Peter? How about online? How about on Zoom? Any questions for Peter? Okay, Peter, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I really appreciate this process and getting the chance to kind of you know, represent the work that I've been doing. I hope you see the passion. I hope you see the expertise, and I hope that you know, I enjoy doing this work. It's hard work. It's not terribly rewarding, but I'm in it to leave a better place for my kids and frankly, you know, just folks being taken advantage of. And so I really want to harness, you know, this energy and put it to work for you guys. So I really appreciate your time. I do hope you come out June 17th and encourage others to. That's the best thing you can do to help out my candidacy. Yeah, thank you all for your time.
Okay. Thank you. For those of you online, if you didn't hear me earlier, Keisha Shawn Waits, the other candidate, has a scheduled conflict and she couldn't be here tonight with us. So, thank you. Peter, Daniel, Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.